Hello, I'm Justin Caravoulias. I am the consignment director for Action Figures and Toys here at Heritage Auctions. And this weekend, we have coming up our annual Star Wars Day auction, which is all Star Wars from all our different categories here at Heritage. Of course, toys is going to be well represented. You can go to ha.com/7412. It is this Sunday at 11 a.m. Central Time. The auction will start. Online bidding is up now, so you can see all the lots there. We're going to talk to you today a little bit about one of the key lots in toys, which is the prototype Boba Fett, also known as the Peach Fett. And we have Brian Rachfal, who's going to be joining us. He is from Rachfal Enterprises. He is a Star Wars prototype expert, a Boba Fett, very possibly the most knowledgeable Boba Fett prototype expert that you're going to have out there. We've spoken to him before about the rocket firing Boba Fett, and today we're going to talk to him about the Peach Fett, which he's also incredibly familiar with. So Brian, welcome.
Hi, Justin.
So Brian, you're familiar with the Peach Fett, and the Peach Fett is, we've had it recently encased by AFA and certified by CIB as an official prototype that is, from the original run of Star Wars. This is noted as coming from 1982, which was, after the original had come out in 1979. So this is the non-rocket firing production style Boba Fett. It has the regular molded back, just like the production figure. So Brian, tell us about this figure.
Well, I'm very familiar with the figure. The gentleman who discovered it reached out to Rachfal Enterprises back in 2023, I believe, when this thing was discovered. And it was really kind of startling because I was aware of an earlier example that was discovered in about 20 years earlier. And at the time, it was the only one known. And then to see another one show up, it was exciting. I can't put it any other way. And for me, it's also interesting because, when you think of first shots for Boba Fett, you usually think of the rocket firing ones, but this is just now one of two that exist that aren't rocket firing. So, it doesn't have the joy of the launcher, but it's in itself very special to the hobby.
And from your research and understanding of this, how did these originate?
Well, this one here, from what I've been told, the gentleman's girlfriend, her uncle used to work at a place that was across the street from a store that sold these, and that he would go there, he'd buy the Star Wars figures. And he did it because he thought that that she would enjoy playing with them, and she kept them. And years later, she went back. I believe there was a death in the family or something, and she went back to Hong Kong and found her bucket of Star Wars figures, and this was in there with a lot of other figures that on the whole didn't look special, but when they started really going through and examining them, they turned out to be first shots. And so once that was discovered, they started reaching out to experts like myself and a few other individuals, and we started trying to help them figure out what these particular pieces were. And in the case of this one here, initially what the story was told to me is that they lived across the street from the company that produced it. But as they refined their information, they got more information from the uncle, who was 16 at the time. It turns out like he was working for a company that was doing maintenance or janitorial services or something like that for a company, and they were going to these different companies, and that this what's the name I want to use for it? It's not a thrift store, but it was a it was like a discount store that was across the street or somewhere. And he would go over there to get the figures. Initially, I was told that they got them directly from the company itself. But like I say, as they refined the story, it looks like it was through a store that was just kind of carrying these.
So basically, cheap, unfinished toys from a discount store in Hong Kong, I believe.
Yes,
correct?
and it's not a discount store. It's another term. I just can't think of it right now.
The general idea.
But the general idea is, and it was really nice. The website they had for this, peachvet.com, there was a question and answer section there. That is, they got more information from the uncle. They were filling things in. And one of the questions, which was a very important one, I think, was what else was sold at that store? And outlet store. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what they referred to it. And anyway, he says, no, it's just Star Wars figures, which does make me kind of scratch my head, because I'm wondering if this was like an outlet for the company that produced these, you would expect there to be other toys, other unfinished toys there. Because clearly, based on what she had in her bucket, it wasn't just finished material. It was prototypes. It was whatever they could sell. But it was just Star Wars. So I'm wondering if maybe some of the other companies were just kind of dumping everything, their excess stock there as well. That's the question I would love answered, but we don't have that answer right now.
Right. So the other interesting part about this is there is a sister piece to this one. This isn't the only one. And this is one that you've had a little bit more time to research. You know, it's funny that these things come out in the wild, if you were, you know, just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, a wild find. That's a good way to put it.
Exactly. So you've actually seen one of these very similar, and you know, it's really a sister piece to this. It has to be.
Yes, it's kind of the original. This one that you're showing on the screen right now came into the hobby around 2003, so about 20 years earlier. And at the time, it was the only one. And this one came direct from the collection of the engineer that oversaw its creation.
Nice.
And the history that he put to it, that he memorialized in a letter of authenticity, he says that this was created to vet a new manufacturing plant in 1981. Apparently they had two at the time. They needed a third one. So they created this to see if the molds would run in their machines. And what's interesting about his letter of authenticity is he refers to the one from 2003, not just as a first shot, but he first refers to it as an engineering pilot, which puts it in a whole different class. And we don't know if we can extend that provenance to the figure that was discovered in 2023.
Right.
But it's an interesting point, because usually something's either a first shot or it's an engineering pilot. You usually don't have somebody mixing the terms.
Right. And really, you know, the fact that they're in the same colors
Yes.
or the same pieces generally would lead you to believe, in my experience with test shots and first shots, and you know, you put them in the mold, you put a color in the mold for that part, it runs, and you usually do one or two or however many you make.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it would seem that these two pieces would be in very high likelihood that they were made at the same time.
I would think there is a good likelihood. We can't, of course, say for certain, but if you look at the copyright on the back of the leg, they also seem identical.
Right.
And that's how some of these people who are kind of copyright whisperers, they can look at a Kenner figure and they can tell you just by the font on the copyright whether, you know, okay, it was made in Hong Kong, but they could tell you it was
which company.
Cater, they could tell you it was Unitoy, it was Smile, by subtle differences. And the copyright on both of these seems to be identical, which brings up a little interesting note here. The copyright, if you're just going by the copyright by itself for both these pieces and exempting the information provided by the engineer, who I would assume knows more than what we know, it's a Cater copyright, which would make sense because Cater was one of the first companies to produce Star Wars figures for Kenner. And if you talk to copyright experts, they'll tell you Cater was the only one making Boba Fett for the Hong Kong marketplace. If they were being produced in Hong Kong, they were being made at Cater. They weren't being made anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So best I can figure out to get the story to match with the LOA, if they were vetting a third manufacturer, they probably just took the molds they had at Cater and ran them at the other manufacturer. And presumably, had they gone ahead with production, they would have changed the copyright. Want to make it clear here, this is speculation.
Right.
Because the other thing too, the gentleman who purchased your figure, we'll call it the Heritage example, he says that was acquired in 1981 because he was 16. The letter that we have for the, let's call it the Rockwell Enterprise example, that letter says it was created, I believe, in 1981 as well. So, but based on the copyright itself they have on the back of the legs, people are actually attributing it more to 1982. So it's splitting hairs, but there's a little nuance there.
Yep, exactly. So one of the other things that we showed a minute ago was multiple different Boba Fett's in different colors.
Yes.
So when we look at the history of the rocket firing Boba Fett, they're all in similar grayish blue base colors, but there are a handful that are in the more of the test shot style of whatever plastic is in the machine. Let's see and let's test out this mold.
Yeah, likely earlier first shots, because when you talk about your standard L slot, which would be the blue gray you're talking about, no copyright to the back of the legs. Those were probably later on in the design process. When you start getting them in really weird colors, that's usually when it's up front and they're just kind of working with whatever they've got around. And there are two of them that are in really unique colors. One's mostly yellow with an opaque cream colored chest or torso. The other one's got more of your typical blue gray head and torso, but it's got white arms, yellow legs. And those are unique, one-of-a-kind pieces. And of course, they're rocket firing.
Right.
Now, when so there was only two of those. And then, of course, in 2003, when the original Peach Fett was discovered, all of a sudden now you had an option of having a third first shot that was not rocket firing. And it's kind of an irony because it's not rocket firing, but it is extremely rare.
Right. And there's only two like this, correct?
To some degree, if it was rocket firing, it'd be a little more ordinary.
Right. And there's as far as we know that have been surfaced publicly, there are only two first shots, test shots, engineering pilots, whatever you want to call.
There's only two
that don't have rocket firing feature, correct?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So and the other one has not come up publicly for sale. And so this is
the other one right now is in a private collection, and based on the conversations I've had with the gentleman, and without getting into details, based on the numbers he has turned down, I think it's a very slim likelihood we're ever going to see it.
So this could be the only chance to get this particular style of figure.
Yeah, or at least at a reasonable price. Yeah.
And there were in the universe of Boba Fett's, of the 100 or so, there are only a few that are, there are some that are, very similar with the gray blue test shot, and then but there are a handful that are very unique. Alternate paint schemes. There are, and then these different colors, and of course, I
think if you really throw out the more common, if you throw out the normal L slots, which there's about 60, 70 of those, and you throw out more, I hate to say common J slots because the J slots are no different,
right?
But you kind of put those aside. The more common or the lower grade examples of those aside, you're only talking about maybe 14 rocket Fetts, which are in a unique or semi-unique sphere. And then, of course, you've got these two Peach Fetts, and that's it. So, I mean, if you throw out the common stuff, which you're really dealing with is a very narrow channel. Yeah. And when these things come up, you better buy them, because once they disappear, if they go into one of these black hole collections, you're just not going to see them again. And I know that's the case, like with the baggied fits. I know at least 2 of those are in black hole collections. So from what I'm being told, we're not going to see them.
Right. And maybe not in our lifetime.
Not in our lifetime. Or these are people that have very, very strong pockets. So what it would take to get one out would be probably financially terrifying. And
at the very same time, when these things do switch hands, they don't always come up publicly, right? Most of these actually are handled privately, and so they really never become available to the public.
That's true. That is true. And that's often, well, that was the case with, actually initially with those 3 baggy fits out there. They were private sales. And like I say, 2 of them probably, they're gone. Right. And it was the same thing with this peach fit when it showed up. The original one, the one that we handled, when it first entered the marketplace, we didn't even know about it right away. We found out about it as it traded hands, and I picked it up when I picked up the Kearns collection. But well, even the Kearns collection, that sold privately several times. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you just don't get an opportunity to get these pieces. The fact that you guys got it up for auction is really, it's nice to see. It's incredible.
Well, it's, it continues even, now we're closing in on, 50-year anniversary of A New Hope in just a couple of years. And, coming up on the 50th anniversary of the toys themselves. It's amazing that we still have these finds. It's exciting that, tomorrow we could learn about something new even after all this time. It's exciting, I know, for both of us to be able to continue to be involved with, with toy history like this, with pieces that, that we get to sit here and talk about and enjoy and speculate and, still learn new things and see new things. So I know I enjoy it, and, you're
oh yes, yeah. I mean, you never know. You never, what they say, never say never. Right. There could always be something new that shows up, or something that's missing, like the Kit Bash fit.
Right.
The prototype to the ultimate prototype of the prototypes. Yeah. That's still missing. Could be a landfill, could be in somebody's drawer right now, and they have no idea what it is. You just don't know.
Right. We can continue to hope that new treasures come out, but
we can. Yes.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate you taking the time with me today. Hopefully the next time we speak, it'll be another new treasure. I'm sure we'll, do this again as we continue to be excited about these type of prototypes. And, Brian Rachfal, thank you very much. We'll talk again.
It was a pleasure. I'm glad I could help.
So join us this weekend, Sunday, May 4th, 11 a.m. Central Time, for the Star Wars Day auction. 300 lots of all kinds of the greatest Star Wars treasures out there. You can go to ha.com/7412 to view all the lots now, and we'll see you on Sunday.